Was Dale Earnhardt Sr. really a dirty driver? Debunking the myths. NASCAR is a sport where the thrill of speed and the heat of competition collide, often leading to some serious on-track drama. Whether it's a last-lap bump and run or a heated pit road exchange, controversy is as much a part of NASCAR as the roar of the engines. Recently, Austin Dillon's win at Richmond sparked a huge debate, one that echoes an age-old question. Was Dale Earnhardt Sr., the legendary Intimidator, really a dirty driver? Or have we misunderstood one of the sport's most iconic figures? Today, we're diving deep into this debate, breaking down the myths, and seeing how Earnhardt's legacy stacks up against modern-day NASCAR controversies like the one involving Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon and Richmond controversy. Let's kick things off with the latest controversy that has everyone talking. Austin Dillon, driving for Richard Childress Racing, pulled off a win at Richmond Raceway that was as dramatic as they come. In the final corner of the race during overtime, Dillon, desperate for a playoff spot, made a bold move that sent race leaders Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin spinning out. Dillon took the checkered flag, but the way he did it didn't sit well with many fans, or his fellow drivers for that matter. After the dust settled, NASCAR took its time to mull things over. When the penalty report finally dropped, it was clear that Dillon's move was a big deal. Sure, he got to keep the win, but NASCAR stripped him of his automatic playoff berth, docked him 25 driver and owner points, and suspended his spotter for 3 weeks. Elton Sawyer, NASCAR's senior vice president of competition, explained that this was about protecting the integrity of the sport and its playoff system. He didn't mince words. Dillon's actions crossed a line, and NASCAR had to send a message. This decision has rippled through the NASCAR community, sparking heated debates about what's fair game in racing and what crosses into dirty territory. Some argue that Dillon's move was just hard racing, a throwback to the aggressive, take-no-prisoners style that has long been a part of NASCAR. Others think it was a step too far, crossing ethical boundaries that the sport is trying to uphold more strictly these days. And naturally, this brings us back to one of NASCAR's most controversial figures, Dale Earnhardt Sr. What does it mean to be a dirty driver? Before we dive into Earnhardt's legacy, let's unpack what people mean when they call someone a dirty driver. In NASCAR, dirty driving usually refers to actions that are seen as unsportsmanlike, like deliberately wrecking another car, blocking aggressively, or using contact to gain an unfair advantage. But here's the thing. In a sport as intense as NASCAR, the line between aggressive and dirty is often blurry. What one person might call dirty, another might see as just part of the game. And that's where the debate over Dale Earnhardt Sr. really heats up. The legend of the Intimidator. Dale Earnhardt Sr. earned his nickname the Intimidator because of his no-nonsense, aggressive style that got inside his competitors' heads. Just seeing him in their rearview mirror was enough to make other drivers nervous. But does that make him a dirty driver? Or was it simply a masterclass in racecraft? Earnhardt's ability to rattle his opponents often led them to make mistakes, giving him the upper hand without him ever needing to resort to dirty tricks. The myth of the Intimidator as a dirty driver sometimes overshadows the fact that he was just really good at playing the mental game, the art of the bump and run. One of the most debated aspects of Earnhardt Sr.'s career is his use of the bump and run. For those not in the know, this involves tapping the car in front just enough to throw it off balance, allowing you to slip by. Now, some might call this dirty, but in the NASCAR world it's often seen as an art form, and Earnhardt was a true artist. He could pull off a bump and run with such finesse that it was more about skill than brute force. Labeling this as dirty driving ignores the precision and control needed to execute it successfully. Controversial moments of Dale Earnhardt's career. Throughout his career, there were plenty of moments where people questioned Earnhardt's tactics. One of the most infamous was at Bristol in 1999, where he spun out Terry Labonte on the final lap to take the win. The crowd was divided. Some booed, others cheered, but everyone was talking about it. Was that dirty driving? Or was it just another example of Earnhardt doing whatever it took to win? Incidents like this have fueled the perception of Earnhardt as a dirty driver, but they also highlight his relentless will to win. a trait that's become rarer in today's more regulated NASCAR world. Racing in the 80s and 90s. To really understand Earnhardt's style, you have to look at the context of NASCAR in the 80s and 90s. Back then, the sport was rougher, with less emphasis on safety and more focus on raw competition. Drivers were expected to be aggressive, and rubbing fenders was just part of the deal. In this environment, Earnhardt's tactics weren't just accepted, they were celebrated. The culture of NASCAR during this time was all about being the best by any means necessary. So, calling Earnhardt a dirty driver by today's standards might not be entirely fair. Comparing Earnhardt Sr. to modern drivers. When you compare Dale Earnhardt Sr. to today's drivers, like Austin Dillon, it's clear how much NASCAR has changed. The rules are stricter, the safety measures are more advanced, and the overall mindset is different. What was once considered hard racing might now be seen as crossing the line. This shift makes it easy to judge Earnhardt's tactics by today's standards, but doing so ignores the era he raced in. Drivers like Dillon are held to a different standard, and while his Richmond incident drew comparisons to Earnhardt, the racing environment today is not what it was back then. What did other drivers think? To get a better sense of whether Earnhardt was truly a dirty driver, it helps to hear what his fellow competitors had to say. Many of NASCAR's legends, like Richard Petty and Jeff Gordon, acknowledged Earnhardt's aggressive style but stopped short of calling him dirty. They describe him as a fierce competitor who raced hard but fair, respecting the unwritten rules of the track. Even drivers who found themselves on the wrong end of one of his moves have admitted that it was more about gaining an edge than playing dirty. This respect from his peers speaks volumes about the true nature of his driving. The legacy of Dale Earnhardt Sr. Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s legacy is one of the most complex in NASCAR history. With 7 championships and countless unforgettable moments, he's celebrated as one of the greatest drivers of all time. But the question of whether he was a dirty driver still lingers. However, what's undeniable is his impact on the sport. Earnhardt brought an intensity and competitive spirit that helped shape NASCAR into what it is today. His aggressive style, though controversial, inspired a generation of drivers who admired his ability to push the limits without crossing them. Even now, his legacy influences how drivers approach the sport, blending aggression with respect for their competitors. The final verdict. So, was Dale Earnhardt Sr. really a dirty driver? The answer isn't as simple as yes or no. While he certainly pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on the track, labeling him as purely dirty overlooks his incredible skill, strategy, and deep understanding of the sport. Earnhardt knew how to race on the edge, and while some of his moves angered his rivals, they were often within the unwritten rules of NASCAR at the time. Ultimately, Earnhardt was a master of both the mental and physical aspects of racing, and his reputation as the Intimidator should be seen more as a testament to his competitive spirit than a mark against his ethics. The debate over whether Dale Earnhardt Sr. was a dirty driver is likely to continue as long as NASCAR exists. His aggressive style, unmatched success, and larger-than-life personality make him a figure who defies simple categorization. But when you look at the bigger picture, his era, the sport's culture, and the respect he earned from his peers, it becomes clear that Earnhardt was more than just a driver who played rough. He was a competitor who embodied the spirit of NASCAR, always pushing the limits and doing whatever it took to win. As we reflect on the past and compare it to the present, it's clear that the legacy of the Intimidator is more complex and inspiring than simply labeling him a dirty driver.